All right. So, hi, Tobias. How are you?
I'm well. I'm well. How are you doing?
I am great. I am great. Joseph, you're good?
Good, thanks. Hi, Melo. Hi, Tobias.
Hi, Joseph.
Yeah, Tobias. So, are you at liberty to start by telling us about yourself and what it is you do?
Okay. All right. So obviously, I'll not start from the name, of course, which you already know. Yeah,
Yeah.
but then I am a software product manager at Blue Code. Yeah. So Blue Code is a software development firm that is locally owned. Uh, the, it is most of the projects that we do have a bias towards the health sector. So we mostly develop e-health systems. So I have been, maybe I can just start from the beginning. I studied computer science
Okay.
at CBU, that's the Copperbelt University. I graduated in the year 2016. That's when I had my graduation. But I was at the institution much longer than the usual. The usual when you get on the let's say not so good side of the papers, but managed to pull through. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I I interned as I think my journey started as I interned as a business development officer for a software development firm in Kitwe called Web Dev Technologies. And what I was doing there mostly was supporting web development and also showcasing the products for the organization to the clients and installing the products, some of the software products that were developed, some of among them school management information systems, training the users, stuff like that. So after interning with Web Dev Technologies, I think later I went back to school to finish up. And after finishing, after graduating, I stayed for a few months without uh, doing anything. And then that's when I later joined uh, Blue Code Systems.
Yeah.
So I joined Blue Code Systems Limited as a business analyst, and most of my roles at Blue Code were to do with user engagement, uh, requirements elicitation, gathering, uh, also basically part of uh, product management tasks like quality control, quality assurance, stuff like that. So within Blue Code, I so I worked closely with developers in terms of speaking the mind of the user to the developers, and also worked so closely with the users in terms of getting feedback on the products, uh, the user acceptance testing processes, etc. After which, I think with more experience, I was then I became a software development product manager with more experience and basically, I would say uh, self training.
Yeah.
So by self training, I mean without formal certifications, basically, but of course knowing the processes and knowing the being able to deliver the tasks assigned and expected of me. I think the organization I work for saw it fit to give me the role of a software product manager, and that's how I've continued in that role up to date.
Great. Great. there's a broad spectrum to cover there, and there's a lot that we could ask in that regard. Um, could you say that you've always had a passion for software? Like, when did you realize that you had a passion for computer science or software development or business analysis? Did you always have that passion, say, from senior high school, or is it something that you sort of figured out when you got into uni? Like, did you know what you always wanted to do or aspire to be, even in your early days as a junior in high school or senior high school?
Okay, so not really, not necessarily. I think my passion as a kid, I wanted to be a lawyer, and then in the process, I didn't do so well in the social sciences. I did much better in the natural sciences. So I was advised by uh, career guidance personnel who advised me to look for something that is in the sciences, close to where I scored high. So I then looked around what I could do in the field of natural sciences and, of course, physical sciences, things related to engineering and all that. I looked at engineering, I looked at medicine, and then I felt computer science was close to something that I would fit in. That's how I ended up enrolling into computer science. So I didn't have the passion when I was getting into it, but then I looked at what it was all about, and I also looked at the industry itself being not so explored in country, and generally the industry at that time was not so saturated, and up to now it isn't. So I I also looked at the fact that in the field of computer science, or rather IT itself, is so vast. There are so many things that uh, people can do. So one can choose anything. So the options are so many just within the industry itself. That's how come I opted for computer science. And then in the process, also, I've always strived to pursue leadership at every level. And I've always uh, I've always strived to contribute in every team that I get to work with. And in many cases, I've always seen myself as a leader, starting from the time I was in high school to the time when I was in university, where I served in the union and whatnot, students representative council and all that. I was the chairperson and all that. So I looked at my leadership abilities, and I thought I could work well in a place where I'm bringing together different sets of people with different skill sets, and in delivering a vision that has been put in place. So that's how come I thought, even when I was studying, I was so interested in the course systems analysis, because there was a lot of there were topics to do with product management. There were topics to do with processes here and there. So I thought I saw myself as somebody driving a process of a software development uh, project, because since I was doing computer science, and that was close to something that I really wanted, that I could fit in, hence where I am now. So I would say it's something that I picked up, and I feel like I strive well in. Yeah.
Oh yeah, yeah. So that's actually very interesting. So part of our target audience, young people at crossroads trying to figure out what career they're taking, and I like the fact that you brought up the idea of how vast computer science, the field of computer science is. Looking at all three of us sitting in one space on this call, but we're all from different fields of computer science, which is quite fascinating from what we knew before. And looking at the known bias to say IT people are always like behind the screen, they're not so friendly. How do you feel about your work building health systems? Actually, that's more like saving lives. So like, what drives you, or what kind of passion do you feel when you build a certain product that actually goes out there to save lives? Like, how would you maybe like express or just describe that experience, and what does that mean to you?
Okay, yeah. So I think the fact that what you do gets to you get to see how it is being appreciated and how it is being used. Uh, like in our case where we do e-health systems, so you get to see to see from inception of the project to delivery, and then when you deliver, you get to see how these health care personnel are using the product. I think that in itself is a source of motivation for me, because when I wake up, I know to say what we are working with is something that is going to help the government uh, ensure that their processes are efficient, and ensure that they collect correct data, so that as they make decisions that are informed. That in itself is satisfying for me. So that drives me.
That's interesting. And in terms of the end users themselves, of course, that I guess would be the medical faculty. What's been the appreciation of the products? Is it something that is just enforced, like sort of, it's just enforced, or like they're given as a command by the supervisors to say, well, you need to start using this now? And how do you get to help them appreciate the systems that that you'd actually provide, like the products that you provide, so that they really see the real value of uh, what you've actually
So
provided?
so for that, so that's usually what happens is when you when you take the approach of uh, getting high level requirements, or dealing with only high level stakeholders without involving the end user, you always receive that pushback from the end user. So the approach that we always take is to ensure that the end user is involved right from the beginning. They are consulted, and they are the source of mainly the source of the features that you're going to incorporate in the product. So they are the main contributor of what they would like to see. So when you start the process of business analysis, for example, you get to, as you get those, you get to have high level requirements that will come from their, of course, their decision makers, the people that are on that level. So when you get those high level requirements, we get to have from a kickoff meeting where we conduct user sort of stakeholder mapping. So we want to know what are the key personas in this all product, and then who are the end consumers. And then once we identify the end consumers, we focus on the end consumers and get as much input as we can get, because if we don't get input from them, we'll not get buy-in. So the process of getting buy-in from them starts from the beginning itself, before you can even start developing the app. So you want to appreciate first the user. You also want to appreciate the environment under which they work in. You want to also appreciate the fact that they already have other systems, and they have some standard operating procedures that once you introduce that tool is likely to somewhat change their standard operating procedures. They have these other challenges. Perhaps they have multiple systems where they push in their information and whatnot. So to avoid that pushback, we make sure that we get input from them of what they really want. And after which, throughout the process, after we get that information and gather that information, at a later stage, we get to call all stakeholders with representation from the end users themselves, including also we get the other, the the high level users, the decision makers. So you get to have stakeholders, like all classes of stakeholders in one place, so that you get you build consensus into what they really want, so that you get that sign off and validation. You even allow an atmosphere for debate between the decision makers and the end users. You let the information flow, so that you get some consensus on specific issues. And one of the key things that bring about appreciation by the end users is usage of the information that they collect. If it just ends at them pushing in information into the system and then they don't get to use that information, and then perhaps their supervisors are the only ones who get to use that information, it becomes tricky. So it's best you introduce also things that will actually make them appreciate the tool right from the point where they're entering information, when they're interacting with the tool. Be it some decision support attention flags, or be it some minor aggregate information to show perhaps the number of clients they attended to. Such also tend to give them that buy-in. So that's the approach that we have come to learn to be effective in ensuring that you get buy-in across all the stakeholders. In as much as perhaps maybe the primary goal for that tool is not for the end users, perhaps it's for the supervisors to just get aggregate information out of that and make decisions. There's also need for that tool to help, like how is it different from the usual data collection that they do? There should be some differences there, so that they get to attach value to what they're using. Yes. So so when the decision comes, for example, their supervisors decide to say this is the tool you are going to be using, they should also feel happy because they have seen what value it brings, even during the process of user acceptance testing and during the process of deciding what features should go in. Because they'll even know that they are the ones that decided some of the features that are in that system. So involvement mostly is what tends to get their buy-in. Yeah. I don't know if that answers the question.
Yes, it does. And I actually get to see a few parts of what the software development lifecycle at play, and you'll be like, oh, okay, so it's not like everything that we learn. Most of the things that we learn actually become useful at some point.
Yes.
Yeah. Tvelo, I think over to you.
Okay, so is it safe to say that when working with the stakeholders or the high level clientele, you follow an agile approach, like an agile methodology, as far as like the software development process goes?
Yes, we follow an agile approach.
Okay, have you ever?
Say we follow an agile approach. Yeah.
Okay, cool. So have you ever had a situation where maybe a client decides to like revert or start over from scratch? Like you actually go through the entire process with the client, like a test-driven development process. The client comes back to you and says, even after going through like an agile development methodology, they still don't like the end product, or they're still not satisfied with it, and they say, okay, let's revise, or let's revert and start from scratch. Like let's destroy to rebuild, in a way. Have you ever experienced such a situation?
Not to that extent, not to an extent where they say we revert or we start afresh, but we have experienced that to an extent where we ended up getting continuously changing requirements. So the reason for that, I would say, we didn't do. I think that was something part of the learning process, and it was, I would say, it was a lesson learned. There is a project, I think, that Tumelo, you were part of that project when you were working for Blue Code. So the thing was, the process of requirements gathering, requirements validation, requirements sign off wasn't properly followed to such an extent where you get the client to sign off to say this is these are the requirements, and this is the we fully agree on this and whatnot. And then also the process of project management itself, where as developers of the tool or the system, we were not in full control of the entire development, as there were other partners, and the other partners were in charge of project management, the project management aspect, and we just became a component that was just reporting on milestones and the deliverables and whatnot. So we ended up having a cycle of keep on reverting to this, back to that, go back to what you did previously, change that. So that was the lesson learned, and moving forward, we picked up some lessons from that, and we started looking at ensuring that we get sign off from requirements through a requirements validation process. That is, I would say that is all encompassing, where you have all the stakeholders in one room, and you agree on the requirements, and you push them to somewhat sign off those requirements. So that's something that has helped with sorting out that problem. But yes, we had that problem, but not to an extent of having to rebuild, but to an extent of having to keep on changing some of the requirements.
Oh, okay, cool. And then, so when it comes to like dealing with difficult clients, have you ever had such an experience before? If you have, how have you? Could you tell us about it and how you dealt with such a difficult or tricky situation?
Oh, okay, yeah. So I have had that. I've experienced that, but then I've just not to. I've just come to a point where it's best to just deliver what is expected of you professionally.
Yeah.
And if a client tries to be difficult or become emotional, I think the response mostly to that is to always just keep it professional and respond to what they ask. And because we've had situations where a client maybe calls you and shouts at you, and of course we are all emotional beings. You might want to respond in a way that would make your relationship sour. But I think what really is important for everyone is to always remember that when you are dealing with a client, that's work. That's not a personal relationship or whatsoever. It's not a house where or it's not a social, what you have, the connection you have with them is not a social connection. It's all about work. And so it's best, when they can't keep it professional, it's best you keep it professional yourself. So I think at the end of the day, the client themselves will begin to sort of slow down on such stance and get to a point where they get to understand what you are trying to communicate or what you are doing. Because I think one of the other things in our industry is that a lot of people don't understand what software development is. They don't understand how long it takes. They think it's graphics design, drag and pull, get this there, place it there. Some of them don't even. Some of them get shocked when you give them an invoice because they expect it's cheap work. It's easy. It's an easy thing to do. You just design here and there and you deliver. So you have clients with such a mindset, and then when you give them the level of effort involved, you give them the timelines, and you also point them to some contractual obligations that they were that were assigned, or point them to other factors that involve that are involved in delivering what they want. They tend not to understand, and then so it's a process that you keep navigating. You explain it in one way. If they don't understand it in the way you have explained it, explain it in another way. If they don't understand in that other way, bring out the contract and point them to some contractual agreements here and there, and until you reach some consensus. So it's a process that we keep navigating every day, and I think it's part of the work. So all we have to do is always just eliminate all personal attachment, try to switch off the emotional button, those emotional triggers when someone is trying to trigger those, and just keep it professional. Yeah.
Okay.
Cool. That's interesting. And yeah, looking back over the last few years, how's been the growth of in terms of market-wise? Like, how's been the growth in terms of demand for locally made software? I believe maybe your greatest competitor, greatest challenge is getting people to trust to say, I mean, like, you don't always have to build things from India, South Africa, or somewhere outside of Zambia. Like, local is just as good as outside. So how's been the growth of the demand, the shift from getting software made from outside versus getting software made inside, especially from an angle of someone who would want to join the field of software development?
Okay. I think there's been an increase of demand, local demand, and there's been this realization that that we have these skills in country. So a lot of course, not to an extent that we would all want, but there are a lot of skilled software developers in this country, and there are a number of organizations that can deliver any software product. One of those organizations is our organization, and we have also seen by how some government agencies like ZRA are now going local, brokering agreements, MOUs with local organizations like the Copperbelt University and whatnot. The software products that they're using locally made, as as opposed to always having to import these services. We just hope that more, because there's been that shift, but just hope that more of these other government agencies and organizations will start looking local. In our space, and where we mostly do e-health systems, of course we do all manner of systems, except that we've worked mostly with the health sector. We have seen situations where there's that deliberate decision by the powers that be to look locally, because they're now thinking about sustainability. They're thinking about what will happen to this system once it's handed over, who is going to maintain this system. And they also when you look at the policy, the IT policy, they have this policy to do with the information has to be hosted locally and stuff like that. So on one end, they can't be demanding that information is hosted locally. On the other end, they start looking elsewhere for out of the country for people to deliver that product.
Yeah.
So there's that. I think it's a continuous. We hope that with time it will improve. They're slowly getting there. We're slowly getting there. I think the government is also realizing that these skills are there in country. So I think we just need more, I would say, more engagement with the powers that be, and some deliberate, I'd say that some deliberate steps by Smart Zambia, and also some deliberate steps by the ICT Association of Zambia to just showcase what we have locally, the organizations that are doing this. Of course, organizations are doing it on their own, like we are doing it on our own in terms of putting our name out there and marketing ourselves. But also we feel like there should be that, also those steps coming from some arms of the government which are trying to drive this industry, which is Smart Zambia, and also some arms of and also some regulatory association like ICT Association of Zambia. So yeah, I think we're going in the right direction. We're going in the right direction. Basically, so basically, it would be good for. So it would be good if the ICT Association of Zambia took some deliberate steps to help locally owned software firms grow, and also make help the government realize that this skill set is there in country. They have to look within. There are a lot of good software developers within the country. A good number of them affiliated with the ICT Association of Zambia, and also we have also these organizations affiliated with ICTAZ, so they can help their members in showcasing what they've done and what they can do, and also the Smart Zambia also could also participate in this chain, because we know that Smart Zambia, there are a lot of things that they're doing. They can look within also for organizations that can help them deliver what they're doing, because their responsibility is quite fast and complex, and I don't think they have just direct employees who are putting together the e-governance vehicle that they're trying to put, the enterprise service bus that we've had they're trying to implement, that is going to bring together all government institutions. I feel like that's a very big project, and I feel like the pace, if they want to pick up pace, I think they could also engage local software firms to assist in delivering that. So there's actually a lot that the government can tap from the existing software development firms in country. They don't always have to look at they don't always have to look outside. They don't always have to look at South Africa, India. And I was also talking about how international organizations have also realized that for some of these projects that involve software development, they're quite difficult to sustain. And if they're going to just get an international firm deliver something, it becomes expensive for the government institution they're delivering that for to maintain that specific software product through and through. So because software needs continuous upgrading here and there, technology is changing, some security protocols are changing here and there, so there's always need for that maintenance. So there's need to create that local capacity for sustainability's sake. So people need to take those deliberate steps. So those are some of my thoughts around how quite all right we have the skill set, and some agencies like ZRA are picking up on identifying this and using that. But I think there's more, and there are more institutions that still need to look within the country.
Okay, and yeah, speaking in line with that, what do you think sales has showed as maybe as local developers in country? Like, what can we learn from the outside that we are currently not doing that makes the customer want to get services from outside?
Yeah, so I think we are not doing much in marketing ourselves, and also we are not focusing on the simple but viable products. Sometimes we focus on complicated products that will not be used for anything. We're also not looking at monetizing what we do, and also collaboration. There's this tendency of wanting to own something as developers. I've seen a few good developers who would just develop something for 6 months, and they're the only ones who know about it. Nobody else knows about it. And when you look at it, you'd actually think that this is something that is viable. It can be monetized, it can be sold, it can be used by somebody out there, it can be improved on. So you want to like think like you possess the monopoly of all knowledge and whatnot. But if you collaborate with others, I think there's more that can come out of what you're doing. So somebody can just get that idea, make a concept note out of it, present it to some people that can fund it. So there are all those opportunities that we're not grabbing, and then we are not trying to check what others can contribute to what you have. It can be something very raw. You have this minimum viable product. It's raw. It's doing something, but the goals that you have for it are far-reaching. But then you have not told anyone. So that's a problem. Yeah.
And in terms of coding standards, security practices within software development, have we made any progress that could match the outside world in those lines?
I would say no, because okay, I'll say no and yes. The regulatory frameworks that we have are not fully enforced. There is no monitoring going on to just make sure that this is happening. For example, one of the requirements would be that I should host my system within the country, and I will host it. Yes, maybe I'll say I'm hosting it at Infratel, but there is no one who come from the government to come and verify. Come to me to say, let's go, you show me where you are hosting this. I go and show you the physical server. There's no one who's going to go into that physical server to verify that this application is running on this server and nowhere else. What are the backups? Perhaps I'm backing up that application elsewhere. So we have these standards, we have these regulations, but the enforcement is not there. And also, I feel like also we are not giving good reasons for some of these regulations, like not so convincing reasons for why would you want me to just host at Infratel, for example, or why would you want me to just host because if I host this thing at your department, for example, the internet is bad, there's this and that, I don't trust your servers, your maintenance is not so good, so you will not. This app, people will not get some optimal use for it because this is breaking every now and then. This will be breaking every now and then. The system will be down every now and then. There's this and that. And then I give you this option. Say, okay, for example, I'll host this on AWS. They have all these security checks, all these security protocols. There's all this backup. But then someone will just give you that response to say, oh, all they want is, this is what the policy says, or all they want is to have the data inside the country. So there's that kind of conversation that is not taking place, and the people that are put to manage some of these things and enforce some of these rules or come up with some of these rules, I feel like they're not consulting widely from the people in the industry that can give them good information and provide them with the rationale for some of the things. Say, oh, the reason why you're trying to do this, I feel like it's not a good reason. Perhaps we do this other thing. So in terms of coding standards, security standards, I think there's still more that needs to be done. We don't fault them because this industry is just growing now, and we haven't really reached a point whereby we can say we are fully we are fully there as a country in terms of ICT infrastructure, ICT, the ecosystem itself, including the skill set. So I think we are still growing, and with more engagement, I think we can get there.
It's interesting. Tumelo, over to you.
Okay, so do you lean more towards us hosting data locally or internationally? Like, are you okay with your data, for example, being hosted in a remote country, as opposed to it being hosted locally here? Like, do you feel like we even have the capability or the infrastructure to pull through with that?
I feel we do have the capability and the infrastructure. Perhaps what we don't have are sustainable costs that are sustainable in ensuring that, and also multiple options. We don't have them in country. I think you can just, if we're trying to host in country, there are a few data centers, like the 2 or 3, and those are the only options you get to have. Then there's that monopoly, and the prices are not controlled and whatnot. But hosting in country provides that aspect of ownership, and for people that are not so tech savvy, or those that do not understand these things quite well, things like redundancy and security issues and whatnot, and also those that don't understand those that don't understand, for example, what the available options outside this country. And among those options that are available outside this country, which ones are the safest and whatnot, it would be easy for them to just know to say, oh, my data is sitting at that data center. Then there's these backups that go to these other centers that are not known, of course, but maybe for security purposes, they don't know, but they'll be told to say, oh, the backup is in dollar, or this backup is in this area, without giving them specific locations and whatnot. I feel they'll feel much safer than telling that it's on AWS servers, or these servers elsewhere.
Yeah.
And then you tell them, of course, of how these AWS services have been are being used by a lot of people, and they're safe so far, this and that, you've posted this and that. You can give them those advantages, but you'll still not convince them. So to strike a balance, I would lean more towards the owner of the tool telling you where you should host their data. That way they feel safe. But then even you, as the person who's developing the tool, you have to look at the options that they're giving you. If they are safe enough, well and good. Yeah, so that's so I would lean more on hosting data locally.
Okay.
If we have the capacity.
All right, cool. Is law something that you're still passionate about behind the scenes?
Yes.
Okay.
It's something that I low-key think about. But then it's something that I think at some point I'll have to somewhat merge with the skills I've picked up with in the software development industry.
Yeah,
and,
I was just about to ask about
merge
that.
them somewhere and still be able to contribute to the industry. Not that I become a lawyer that goes to court here and there. No. So what I've been thinking about doing is, because I'm trying to pursue my master's now. I started, and I reached a point where I'm supposed to do my dissertation and put it on hold for some personal reason.
Nice.
But then something that I'll revert to and finish up, and then perhaps we look at the other piece, then see if it's something that can be merged, just out of passion for it. But otherwise, I enjoy being in the software development industry, in the IT industry itself. I enjoy being putting teams together, following through, and also I enjoy driving a product vision and seeing it out there and delivered to the client, and seeing the client happy or using it. Also, even appreciating the challenges that they're facing using that tool.
Tobias, although I missed most of your the beginning, I just have one thing that I was wondering. Considering your background, what area do you think, especially in government processes, would benefit a lot from with integrating technology? What process do you think is so lacking that you think it would really benefit?
Okay, so the process that is lacking, I think the first thing that might need to be resolved with government processes is the unique ID issue. I think we need to be able to identify every citizen. From the government should be able to use to have some form of identification for everyone, like a database for all citizens. Just the national registration process itself should be digitized, and then starting from there, I feel like that if one is given an ID, it should be something that will be in every other government department's database. So you move from you go to a police station, they should be able to pick out your ID and pick out your face there, just search for you in the database, maybe even using your biometrics. I think that is something that will be a start point for so many things. It will help a lot of other data duplication problems that happen in hospitals and other departments where you register your vehicle here and there. I remember at some point I had a situation where I was registering a vehicle, and then where at the ZRA port where they were giving the invoice, the person who was entering that information on the chassis number, they just put a space. But then that space was not detected by a system. That space was detected by some manager at RATSA. Just a space. It was detected by just looking, someone using their eyes to detect that there's a space here, so this is the wrong number. Then I was like, how is that a problem? So I feel like
yeah, you've really expanded on that.
Yeah.
I particularly chose just one area, and you mentioned something like national registration. So would you stand for electronic registration, national registration cards?
Yes.
Would you be part of the team that helped if you could?
Yes, I would.
Okay. Oh, that's interesting. Oh no, I just wanted to see how we can streamline or break down some of the issues that we already face nowadays, and what ideas you could have on some. So yeah, that's it.
Okay. No, thank you so much, Kima, and nice to meet you.
All right, nice to meet you as well.
All right, awesome. And then some of the ways that you feel digital transformation could be implemented, just going back to like your first love, which is law. In what ways do you feel like you could marry law with software development or integrate the two?
So, this is a growing industry, and there's a lot that is coming in the area of artificial intelligence. There's robotics, there's Internet of Things, and all that. And I feel like with such changes, there'll be need for more legal frameworks and regulation for some of these things. There'll be need for with also cyber security. That is, we're having a lot of cyber security crimes and all that. I feel like there's need for legal reforms to somewhat keep on also matching with what is going on. And I feel like we need to have eventually the people that make the laws or people that review these laws who may need to also have a technical background. So I think that's the point where the two can marry.
Okay. All right. And do you feel like there's a like a current automated process that you feel you understand and feel like needs to be revised as far as like the regulations go?
Not necessarily, but I feel like there are spaces out there. I think digital spaces. One just the one that just jumps to mind is Facebook, the Instagram, and these social media platforms. I feel like there is need for some more level of regulation, or rather, there's need to automate some basically maybe some more AI products that can be detecting some users, especially young users, that are exposed to whatever is out there. Because these are now spaces that are being used for crimes, that are being used for propagating things like hate speech, pornography, and all that stuff. So I feel like it's for a child that finds themselves on that space, they're vulnerable to a lot of things. So I think we may need to have some laws that can prevent some of that. I just don't know how, but we may need to have some laws and also some digital tools that can help with that.
All right, but then who do you feel should regulate, human beings or the automated systems on their own? Like, because we're looking at the advent of like machine learning and AI. So if it gets to a point where it's, I'm not sure how far your philosophy goes, just looking at AI. Do you feel like it could get to a point where it's sentient and then it could actually regulate the control systems on its own, or still, do you still feel it needs to be managed by people? Because with automation, this could actually like spiral out into like a two-part question, because I could look at employment as well. Do you feel like automation will ruin employment opportunities for people, or will it open up more gateways for employment?
With automation, okay, so starting from the background to your question, to some extent, we can automate some tools that can like machine learning tools that can try to prevent some of these vices, and then at the same time have humans to also step in somewhere, because I think with automation you can only go to a certain extent. There also has to be some human contribution to some of these things. And then with if we're going to then you're talking about people losing jobs,
Yeah.
especially with the advent of machine learning and artificial intelligence. I think this is something that was expected and was predicted. A number of there are some jobs that will be redundant, of course, and but then not all jobs will be redundant. That's why they say innovate or die. So this is something that with the changing times, I feel like there should also be a shift in career paths for individuals, and I feel like to some extent, computer science should not become at some extent, computer science should be fused into every other program, like a medical doctor, and then you learn a bit of computer science and automation, because at the end of the day, if you are going to have, say, a robot replace you to do your work as a medical doctor, that robot, it will not write itself. The lines of code that will go in there will be informed by a learned doctor who knows how to diagnose this and that and that. So that is just coming to help. So if you have a bit of an understanding of also there's computer generated instructions here and there are these, then you inform the process of writing those, if this happens, that happens, and all that. You will not necessarily be the programmer, but you contribute as a medical doctor to putting up that robot. So that robot will basically be you. Then at the end of the day, you chip in where the robot is failing.
Okay, that's interesting though. But when you look at machine learning, the professors themselves do not understand how the machines learn. You know, they write parts of the code, but then the learning process, like that algorithm keeps on evolving to some extent, and then it just keeps expanding its knowledge base. So aren't you afraid that it could get to a point where it starts to feel like it could reason or try to use logic on its own?
But I think we're still very far from reaching those extents.
Yeah.
I think from the studies that have been done, even there's a limit. If you look at neural networks, there is that limit. Like the algorithm can only be that long. There are things to do with memory. There's things to do with the processing power of the machines.
Yeah.
So all that, I feel like we're still we're still so far from reaching those levels, because if it expands its knowledge, the memory has to expand, the processing power gets to expand. There's a whole lot of underlying things that have to happen. So we still have a long way, but we can still get machines to do certain things as to a certain level, to execute certain tasks. But eliminating a human completely, I think that threat shouldn't come now. Perhaps let's see what will be achieved in the years to come, and then maybe we can start looking at that threat. But at the end of the day, these machines will be coded by humans, so you can always switch them off.
I hope so. Have you been following
It's interesting.
have you been following the what's the machine called again? I think it's Lambda. The Google AI. I'm not sure. Have you been following that story?
No, I
I
haven't
have.
followed it.
Oh, okay.
I think I'm aware of it.
Yeah.
I've heard about it, but I haven't followed it further.
Okay, cool.
Didn't he get fired?
I think he got suspended.
Or was he dismissed from his work?
Suspended, not.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. So okay, well, I'd love to expand on it, but since you haven't looked into it, I guess that's fine. We could talk about it some other time. Maybe after you read the article and watch.
Okay.
I'll
look into it.
Yeah. Okay. But okay. Would you be open to an AI rule in the country? Would you be open to that?
No, because like I mentioned, I think looking at what we have at hand now, we're still far from getting AI products as beginning to regard AI products as entities among us, as equal entities, or because we know that it's just somebody that wrote the instructions that this AI is executing, and when the AI learns more, it's still part of those instructions that are providing the core learning. So I think I wouldn't be open to that. Perhaps I would be open to something that would regulate some of the production. Yeah.
Oh, Okay. When you say production, is there any specific field that you're looking at?
And what I'm looking at is because you wouldn't want to program something that, for example, steals money for you. You don't want to program something that is harmful to the population. We're in the advent of where we have these weapons of mass destruction and all that stuff. So there has to be some maybe uh, monitoring of what AI products we're putting out there. Like what is the secret functionality, the underlying functionality down there. So we get to have somebody maybe advanced to read through the code or to look at the use case for that. I feel like we may need to regulate some of that. So as simple as, oh, this use case not for our country, or this use case, okay.
Okay. All right. I think we'll shift away from AI because it gets philosophical, and we'll probably talk about it till midnight if we we don't stop here.
Yes.
So when it,
And just to remind that well, so
we've got 3 minutes left.
yeah, so we just have yeah.
Okay, I think my last question will be to do with when it comes to an actual project itself. Like from the inception of the project, from a scale like 1 to 10, how often do you like have to bid, as opposed to like how often a project just comes to you itself?
So it's a combination of both. So there are projects that we get to bid for, like
Yeah.
an organization which is a profit-making organization, and we write proposals. So you write proposal, and then you get you get the job. And then there are also some projects that would come on referral, or perhaps I would say maybe you delivered a similar system, and then they'll come to you for such work, or they come to you because you already have some existing relationship with the client, and then maybe they want you to upgrade the system or to re-engineer it in a certain way. And then there are in-house projects that you get to, from the inception, that you get to just, these are just in-house ideas that you bring forth, you write a concept note for, and then you just write a whole proposal document for such a project, and then you begin developing it in-house. That's usually the process. So all three, I would say, they're the methods that get to be used.
Okay. All right. Cool. Joseph, over to you.
Yeah, I think most of my questions have been answered. I don't have any. I can give back 30 seconds back to you.
All right, great. Yeah, so any questions for us, Tobias? Any word out there for the people watching?
Okay, so I think my closing remarks are that this has been an interactive discussion. I enjoyed it.
Cheers.
And you're doing a good job publicizing some of the works that are going on in this industry. This is good. I think let's keep it up, and let's have more of these discussions. It's so good for our industry, and I think we need to encourage even the youngsters to, in terms of we need to encourage them to pursue their passion, and also for those that want to get into this industry, we shouldn't discourage them. We know programming is quite hard. It requires a lot of time input and effort, and long sleepless hours and whatnot. We should still encourage them that there's a lot that can they can offer this industry, because the industry is vast and there are a lot of options. They can pick a corner and thrive in it. Thank you so much.
Cheers, Tobias. Likewise, thank you so much. And yeah, just to add on, that's I think that's one of the incentives we had as a team here. We said we should push the envelope forward as far as like the spectrum of computer science and just tech overall is concerned. To sort of like encourage the younger ones to say that, oh, there's like lots of opportunities in this field, and you don't necessarily just have to be a programmer. But you know, like you said, just looking at you being a business analyst and the software product manager, like there's like vast fields. Joseph is an auditor, and Kima works as an editor as well. So it's a vast field, and just looking at digital transformation as well, and how we're crossing over into the digital scope of things. It's a paradigm shift. So there's a lot to be had and a lot to be said. So once again, thank you so much for your time, Tobias, and cheers, guys. Peace.
Thank you.
All right.
For having you.
Bye bye.